everybody. Welcome to Joy on Paper, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. My name is Davon Miller, and today it is a joy to sit in for Patsy, that's, with a Z, by the way, to be a guest host for today's show. I might not be in the studio where Joy on Paper broadcasts from, but we're still going to have a great show nonetheless. You might know me as one of the correspondents here for Joy on Paper, where I talk about the latest children's books and authors, and for today's show, I have the absolute pleasure of talking with 3 children's authors who are doing phenomenal things. All the guests that we're having on the show today, you may have heard me mention them in a book buzz before. And after reading their stories, I knew I just had to get them on the program because their books are just phenomenal. Together, this first duo, they've authored the books The Liebrary, which is one of my favorite children's stories now, and they've also authored Tribecca. Everyone, please help me welcome Howard and Amanda Pearlstein to Joy on Paper.
Hey, Davon.
Thanks, Davon. It's so great to be here.
Oh, it's so wonderful to hear both of your voices. And, we have to talk about The Liebrary. As I just mentioned, it's one of my favorite children's stories now. What was the inspiration behind that book?
Well, I'll take that one, Davon. So one day I happened to be driving by a library, and it just struck me that the word library sounds the same, whether it's spelled beginning L-I-B or L-I-E-B. And so I thought, that's kind of an interesting take on the word the library as a lie. And this kind of happened about the time, when fake news was all over the airwaves and people were talking about that. So it just kind of seemed appropriate.
Oh, my goodness. I love that so much. I think you just did a phenomenal job, just the way you wrote the story, and, you both have also written another book called Tribecca, and I believe that's coming out soon. What can readers expect from that book?
So that book was actually inspired by a real event in my life. I fostered kittens, and when I was living in New York City, fostered a 3-legged kitten whose name was Tribecca, and we thought it would be a really good idea to kind of showcase Tribecca as a children's story about a cat who's trying to fit in and has these differences, but ultimately, is just as valuable as every other cat.
Oh, wow. I love that so much. Was there anything particular, hard when writing both of these stories?
I think writing, I think what's great about working with Amanda, and she's my daughter, and what's great is, I kind of took a stab at the first draft of The Liebrary, and, it was kind of okay, and I'm just I know this can be better, and I just wish I had some help on it, and so I just emailed it to Amanda, and I just said, what can you do to make this better? And, sure enough, she just, took it and just took it to the next level.
And, I was also going to ask about the collaboration process. I mean, when reading The Liebrary, it just seems so seamless. How do you both know when a story requires both of you to work together?
Well, so my dad is the one who started in the children's book writing industry. I joined in later in the game, but I had seen, his success and kind of the amazing books that he created and was really inspired by that. And in terms of the collaboration, it's been really fun because we live in different parts of the country. We don't see each other, as often as we would like. So it's kind of a cool way to work on a project together, even though we're apart. And just, emailing each other drafts back and forth, getting on the phone and talking about, the rhyme scheme and the plot. And it's just a really fun experience.
That's awesome. And so now you also, not only do you guys both collaborate together, but you also work with illustrators. I know The Liebrary was illustrated by Marna Minnie, and Tribecca was illustrated by, I hope I don't butcher this name, Renata Potter, I believe. How does that dynamic work with the illustrators? Is it almost the same as when both of you collaborate on a book? Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's different with every publisher. Tribecca was published by Marshall Cavendish and The Liebrary by Yeehoo Press. And with Yeehoo Press and The Liebrary, we didn't have a ton of input, I would say. We were sent examples of the illustrations, and we had a chance to, weigh in and give feedback. But it was, less hands-on than, definitely our collaboration between Amanda and me. But with Tribecca, Renata actually had illustrated one of my first books, Sally Ann McFidget-Bottom. And so with this publisher, they're fine with you going and finding your own illustrator. So I reached out to her to see if she'd be interested in doing it. And, luckily enough, she was. And, both of them just did amazing jobs. And I think, when I look at the stories and the content, I feel like somehow we lucked out in finding the perfect illustrator for each story.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness, I love that. And you kind of just briefly talked about, the publishing process. I mean, was that also hard, finding a publisher to take on this story?
Yeah, I mean, the publishing process is brutal. It's like if you have a thin skin and don't like rejection, definitely do not try to get something published. I don't know the key to getting published. For me, it's just been just continuous, never giving up, and just, continually querying and never letting the endless stream of rejections get you down.
I love that inspiration. I think so many authors and writers definitely need to hear that. So thank you so much. And, Howard, you're also a copywriter. How does your copywriting experience influence your writing for children's books and or vice versa?
I would say that, being a copywriter has been the perfect background for being a picture book writer. In ads, you're really just telling a little story that is a combination of words and visuals. And so the same thing is true with picture books. The words and the pictures complement each other and kind of take that story to the next level. And so I feel like that background really prepared me well, to kind of segue into a picture book writing career.
For the both of you, how did you both know that you wanted to become authors? How did you know that you wanted to write these books? I mean, did you have experience, prior to writing any of the stories that you've written before?
I mean, so I've always enjoyed writing short stories, poetry. Never really gotten things published, but I've always enjoyed that as a hobby. So having the ability to turn that into an opportunity to actually publish and have other people read what I've written was really cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
And for me, I never really thought about doing that, but it was like in 2018. I don't know if I was going through a late midlife crisis or something, but I was doing some soul searching and decided, I spent my entire career creating these ads for other people, and it'd be really nice to do something that I wanted to do, and was my own kind of vision based on just whatever came to my mind. And so I just decided, why not try it? If I could write these ads that are little stories, maybe I could do the same with books.
Interesting, cool. And Amanda, I think your background is a little different from Howard's. Do you ever find the background that you have intertwined with writing? I believe your background is a lawyer, is it?
It is, yes. I'm a lawyer, and I do a lot of writing in my day job, and it's a lot drier and a lot more dull than writing children's books. So doing the children's books was a great outlet because it allowed me to be a lot more creative, rhyme, be funny, which are all things that are pretty frowned upon in the legal system.
And I know it definitely, writing these children's books has to provide you just this joyful feeling compared to your other day job, right?
Definitely.
Now, Howard, you've also written some other books. There's Orange Pornge. I mean, there's Sally Ann, Connor Crow. I mean, what can you tell us more about those stories as well?
So, I'll start with Sally Ann McFidget-Bottom. So my wife teaches, or actually just retired from teaching kindergarten, and my favorite stories of hers when she came home were the ones about the kids who just, were good-hearted, but for whatever reason could not control themselves and, couldn't sit still during rest time, couldn't walk in a straight line down the hall. And so I thought that's a great idea for a story because, there are other kids that obviously, can't sit still. So that was the inspiration for Sally Ann McFidget-Bottom. And then, Orange Pornge was my first book, and that I just had this random idea of wanting people to feel included. I think, people feel different than others, and colors kind of represent, that people do have differences, but there is a way for everybody to get along. Everybody is valuable in their own unique way. And that was kind of inspiration for Orange Porridge and the follow-up books in that series.
Okay. And what can you tell us about Connor Crowe?
Yeah, so Connor Crowe Can't Let Go was actually, my wife and I went out to breakfast one morning, and I noticed that, every parent, it seemed like, was on their phone, and then when their kids who were being ignored started acting up, they just handed them their phones to kind of entertain them. And I thought that was really sad, and so I thought about these kids that are on these devices starting from these young ages, and that they're bound to get addicted to them because it's just gives them so much pleasure to do those. So I thought, maybe I could do some sort of cautionary tale, like a modern-day twist on the chocolate touch, where, a kid, dreams of just never having to let go of his tablet. And sure enough, Connor Crowe's dream comes true, but he soon realizes that, being attached to your tablet and not being able to engage with your parents and family is not everything it's cracked up to be.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. So I believe I've read that the Liebrary kind of takes a little bit of influence from Dr. Seuss, and especially with the rhyming aspect, which I just have to say you just did a phenomenal job with that. To further add on to that, I wonder, what children's books did you enjoy reading growing up? I mean, was it always Dr. Seuss? And, did they have an impact in your writing in any way, shape, or form for the both of you guys?
I mean, I was definitely a big Dr. Seuss fan when I was that age, when I was, preschool, kindergarten age. My parents read a ton of books to me. I was really, a reader from the time I was little. And it's funny because, even these random picture books from childhood, they'll sometimes pop up in my head, 30 years later. I'll be thinking about, I went to Walla Walla, Washington recently and thought about, Double Trouble in Walla Walla. It's just things that stick in your mind. So I hope maybe our books end up doing the same for some kids.
When I was a kid, and then reading those to our kids was just, I think some of our favorites. So I would say definitely Dr. Seuss influenced us somehow.
Awesome. And, given that you guys are influenced by Dr. Seuss, I'm wondering now, what do you hope that kids and especially families take away from the Liebrary? Well,
for me, for the Liebrary, the takeaway I hope people get is just to look at things critically. And, it's not really about books from the library. It's just about what you're hearing in the world around you. It's like if you see something online, social media, even the news online, it's like if it doesn't quite ring true, don't take it at face value. Think critically about it and decide for yourself if this is actually true instead of just believing everything at face value.
I love that. Now I wonder if, when writing the story, are you rethinking about, the library that you might visit yourself? Or, I wonder if you're oh, man, I wonder, if these books are actually true or not. Whenever you go there,
Well, I think, the actual library, we're huge fans of the library. And, when our daughters were little, we spent so much time there. And they're a tremendous source of reliable information. So, I definitely wouldn't want that to be the takeaway. It's more just about that idea of critical thinking, and, just because you see it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
That's very true. I love that message so much. Given that this is joy on paper, how do you both find joy on paper? How do you find the joy when it comes to writing stories? Are you always happy, when you write these stories, or do you find this emotional inspiration, when you write these stories,
I would say for me that I am always happy when writing stories, because it just kind of gets you into that flow state where you're just being purely creative and having fun. And that's something that I feel like, adults don't have that many opportunities to just play and have fun. And I feel like that's what writing is for me. And you can see that also in the outcome. Orange Porridge was your first published book, right? I was reading that to a friend's kid who's 2 years old, and he was melting down with laughter. He was falling off the couch, and it was just like, that was just so much fun to see that joy being spread around.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. I should also ask, how about you, Howard? How do you find joy when it comes to writing these stories?
Yeah, I would say like the initial joy is really just getting that inspiration for the story. It's like, that inspiration just comes from anywhere. Like I mentioned, just the library. And it's just when that initial spark to me sparks joy, I guess I'd say, and you realize, there is something here that could be fun or entertaining or interesting in some way. And then, seeing it come together on paper, is also like a joyful moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely know, like, when you see these kids or, any family read your story, I know it just has to provide some sort of warmth feeling to you. Am I right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So do you guys have any advice for anyone who wants to be an author or maybe even a copywriter?
Yeah. Let me think. So, it's two different worlds. So for the author part, it's like, I would say my biggest advice is if you want to make something out of it, you have to be committed to it, not just interested in doing it. It's like I mentioned, the publishing process or trying to get something published is brutal. So you have to put that idea of, becoming a published author above everything and not let anything distract you or deter you or defeat you, and just keep going no matter what. And, you don't, if that's not your dream to be published, that's fine, just to write for pleasure, for sure. So I'm definitely referring more to somebody who wants to see their work published. Copywriting is another beast, and I'd say, there's definitely a lot of talk in the news that AI is killing copywriting, and I definitely see that is not true. So I would, encourage people who, want to make a career out of writing, copywriting, to pursue it. And, there are a lot of great schools you could go to or courses to take. But just, I guess the biggest advice for any aspiring writer is that writers write. And so just write.
Awesome. Amanda, do you have any advice for any writers out there?
Yeah, I think I really agree with what you said earlier about rejection and about kind of being open to constructive criticism and not viewing criticism as, I'm a terrible writer, I shouldn't be doing this, but viewing it as an opportunity to grow and to improve, and there's always those opportunities, and you should seize on them. And the one thing that helps, too, is just when you're writing a first draft of anything, view it like you're just writing it for yourself. Like it's going to just be put in your drawer, nobody's ever going to see it, and that gives you that kind of confidence to really be bold with it, to have fun with it, and then during your many stages of revision, you can always say, now I'm writing this for an audience, now it's going to be published, and kind of have that mindset.
I love that. Awesome. I have to ask, Howard, do you enjoy copywriting more or, writing children's books more?
I've been doing copywriting a long time, so I am definitely enjoying writing children's books a lot more, but, copywriting still pays the bills, so I'm happy to do that.
In 2024 and in 2025, I believe you will be releasing new books called This Book Is Not For You and The Bad Book for Good Kids, both published by Familius. What can readers expect from those upcoming titles?
Yeah, I'm actually super excited about those to be coming out. But one thing also for people to know is the publishing process is so incredibly slow. Both of these books have been in the works for years, and it's shocking because advertising is such a fast-paced industry, and then for somebody to say, it's 2021, this book will come out in 2025, is just hard for my mind to grasp. But both of those books are kind of, I guess you'd call them meta title or meta stories, where there's a lot of breaking of that fourth wall, and there's interaction between the book and the reader. So I think they'll make for interesting, fun titles that definitely don't take themselves too seriously.
I love that. And, I of course have to say thank you both so much for coming on the show. And real quickly, where can people find your books?
Yeah, well, my website, howardpearlstein.com, all of them are there. And, of course, they could just search on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. I guess just type in Pearlstein and see what comes up.
Thank you so much, Howard and Amanda, for coming on the show today. We wish you all the best. The library is now available to purchase and coming soon is Tribecca, so be on the lookout for when that book releases on July 18th, 2023. Howard and Amanda, thank you both so much again.
Thank you so much
Devon.
for having us.
Hey everybody, welcome to Joy on Paper, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. My name is Davon Miller, one of the correspondents here for Joy on Paper, and today it is a joy to sit in for Patsy, that's with a Z by the way, to be a guest host for today's show. Earlier in the show, I teased that we'd have another children's author on the program. Our guest is someone who is an award-winning author, illustrator, and the creator of the Jayce the Bee and Harold children's books. Everyone, please help me welcome Calvin Reynolds to Joy on Paper.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, Calvin?
All right. How you doing, Devon?
Doing good. It's so great to hear your voice.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Of course, not a problem. Well, I also have to say congratulations on your newest release, Harold the Amazing, which just came out on Tuesday.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Oh,
yeah, the
my
Harold
goodness.
series really was a surprise that I did not see coming. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And please tell readers what can readers expect from this newest edition in the Harold series?
Well, this will be the final Harold book. It's the third in the series. This is just a short picture story about, the importance of being amazing as just kind acts of common courtesy, examples of how kindness can make you an amazing person. And I think that's a very important message, I think, for our young ones right now. And, throughout the story, you kind of see where Harold, and you kind of read about Harold, how he feels like he's a hero. He's a superhero. His superpower is, just doing kind things for people. And that's what makes him amazing.
I love that. Oh, my goodness. That is amazing. And, you mentioned that this was...
First book, I'm sorry, Devon, the first book was Harold Gets an F. And it was a small story about time management. And, he was kind of struggling with time management and got a big F, in his classroom. So I thought it'd be a great way to close out the series with Harold the Amazing, playing off of the A, amazing. So, so I'm excited for it.
Oh, likewise. I think I read another book in the Harold series, Harold's Big Dreams, and I was just about to ask, how does this latest edition in the Harold series add on to what the series is about?
Well, each book is kind of stands on its own. They're not like a continuation of each other. So again, the first book was more about time management. The second book, Harold's Big Dreams, focuses directly on following your dreams. Your adventure starts with dreaming. As a kid, I often imagine, myself in going off in these imaginary worlds. I imagine myself being, a superhero of sorts, and that was the message of Harold's Big Dreams. You follow your passion, find your. Don't be afraid to dream and dream big. And yeah, the third story here is just more about getting back to the basics. Kindness. Being amazing isn't hard to achieve. It's being kind to others. Simple acts of kindness is a big deal. So I think each story has an individual message that resonates with just everyone, and I think that's important.
I love that so much. That is awesome. And did you know that Harold would eventually become a series? I'm now curious to know, like, where exactly did the character originate from? Was it just from that first story itself?
No, I did not. It was like a nice little surprise over the last 3 years. Back in 2020 when we were in the COVID phase of our situation here, you had a lot of kids homeschooled, and a lot of parents were, for the first time, challenged with trying to be teachers. And one of the common things I realized for, just looking around, was time management. Kids were struggling with now being at home and, being faced with doing their math and science and things of that nature. So I thought, it just dawned on me. I thought it'd be a great idea to do a story of a little kid who's very smart kid, but, misses an opportunity and takes an opportunity for granted when he doesn't use his time wisely to prepare for a test. And and I wanted to change my art style, so as you know, it's completely different from the Jayce the Bee series. Harold is definitely, something that's out of my comfort zone as it relates to just, doing something completely different. And this art style is more familiar to people. It's bright, simple shapes. And I think that attracted, a larger audience as well. And, once I released the first book, man, I had no idea it was going to take off the way it did. And from there, I just thought, I kept getting messages. People would inbox me, when is Harold coming back? Are you going to do another Harold story? And I kind of, and you're a fellow author. Sometimes you kind of have to, it has to hit you. It has to be something special. I don't want to just write something that, I'm not passionate about. And so I sat on Harold for like a year, and then I just thought, why not take a little bit of what I see with my kids, a lot of the things I see with other people, about believing and dreaming big, and why not try to establish that thought process with a younger audience while they're still holding on and dreaming about, the creativity. When you see kids and how excited they get when, you take them to see a Marvel movie or they're watching, and watching and learning, and you want to capture that. So, you know what? That was it for me. I was like, Harold's big dream, and so, So here we are with the third book, Harold the Amazing, which I just thought this would be a great time. We have a certain climate right now, and I just think this would be a great time to remind our kids about how important it is to just be kind and common courtesy is important. And, that's something that we definitely don't want our kids to not know that. And we kind of want to remind them of that in a fun way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Earlier you touched on this interesting subject that I'm curious about. You mentioned that Jayce the Bee series and Harold series, they have these different art styles. So I'm wondering, how did you find that style to distinguish both those series, or how did you know like one would fit the other, and how one probably wouldn't fit with the other?
I have a little bit more about me, and for the audience, I worked in the corporate environment as a lead graphic designer for over the last 23 years. So worked with Majestic Sports and Fanatics. So a lot of my background has been in the sportswear industry as a graphic designer. And so one of the benefits of that is learning a lot of the nuances of the profession of being an artist. And so I'm always looking at things that are cutting edge, things that are different. And so over the years, I familiarized myself with different art styles and things that are trending and things of that nature. So when I first started out to do Jayce the Bee, I wanted my art to look different, right? It's definitely not a simplistic art style. It takes a little bit more time to execute and expedite each illustration. But I felt it was something that would look different and, just challenging certain aspects of art. I wanted my colors to be super bright because I just looking at my kids and just looking at kids in general, when you look at their entertainment, the things that they're attracted to, it's a digital age. And so kids, they have more devices that they're looking at. Those devices have vibrant colors. And I wanted to create Jayce to have that type of vibrant look. And so, after working on Jayce for so many years, back in 2020, I kind of I started admiring more and more because again, I love comic books. I grew up reading comic books. Stan Lee and Marvel and DC, and that was just that would just fuel my creative juice. And so I kind of wanted to do Harold in a more simplistic way, where I could just have fun, and not that Jayce isn't fun, but Jayce is very meticulous. The art style is very somewhere in between comic book, cell shade, and oil painting. Whereas Harold is just simple shapes, cell shaded look, very vibrant colors. And so I thought that would be a great contrast to create. You got your Jayce the Bee series that has a different art style, and you have your Harold stories that are just more familiar. Harold is more your traditional looks like SpongeBob or just some of the stuff that's more familiar with kids and adults alike. And I think as I venture out, I will probably produce other stories, because I have a lot of stories I would like to tell, and I will probably explore even more with different art styles.
Okay.
I'm sorry if that was a long answer.
Oh no, we love it. We love it. We love hearing these stories. And now I'm sitting here wondering, you mentioned that you were inspired by Marvel and the comics. I mean, can we expect to see a comic book series soon from you?
No. Short answer, no. I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. But honestly, we have a lot of those type of stories and those type of art styles out there. And, I'm inspired by it. I kind of like being a big fan of that. I attend the Tampa Bay Comic Cons, the Atlanta Comic Cons. I'm a huge fan of it, but I have no interest in creating, not at least, you can never say never, but at least right now, I just don't have the desire to try to create a graphic novel to the level of a comic book. Although I as you know, Davon, I illustrate for independent authors, and the last book that I just illustrated was pretty close, sort of like a graphic novel. It's pretty close to like a comic book. It's the closest thing I've created, to a comic book. But the short answer is no.
No. I mean,
No.
And you also just touched on one of my other questions. We definitely know that you've illustrated books for so many different authors. Talk about the collaboration process for that. I mean, how is that different from, just writing by yourself to now you're actually like working with people on their stories?
Yeah. I mean, it's been great. I mean, it's you kind of, I have different metaphors. I love the energy. You see authors tell their stories for the first time, and it's my job to kind of help them visualize and help bring their story to life. I have a great analogy that I try to, just help independent authors understand, where there has to be a trust in the process, where, of course, the author is the writer, and the producer, it will be the publisher, and the director is the illustrator. So if we're all on the same page, we're going to make a great movie. I tend to look at it like, hey, your book is a movie. So visualize your book as a movie. And if we're all on the same page, if we have that level of trust, we're gonna have a good movie. What tends to happen sometimes, if there's a breakdown, and you see it all the time. I mean, I think we're all kind of privy to it when we get excited about a certain movie or a certain TV show, and it's like, man, what happened? And it's normally either there's a breakdown between those three areas. And I think the most successful movies and stories and books are when you see that trust, and you see how that collaborative, those three areas work and gel so well together that it turns out to be a great finished product. So yeah, so far, I mean, working with independent authors has been really cool, creating and getting out of my comfort zone as it compares to me working on my own. It's just a freedom, the freedom of, I'm going to do my books the way I want to do them. And when I'm actually working with a client, it's what the client wants. And that's always the goal, is to give the client something that they could be extremely proud of many years from now, and something that I can look at and just take pride in as well. My goal is to never shortchange any client. I want to put out the best work that I can produce at that point in time, and so I can be proud of it just as well. So, yeah, it's been great.
Well, I know you most certainly have to be proud of all that you've accomplished. I know kids are most certainly excited about your Jayce the Bee series, and of course the Herald books. I think I saw it on a PBS segment, and so we've been talking about Jayce the Bee, but for our audience listeners who might not know about it, I mean, can you explain, like, what is Jayce the Bee? Like, what are those books about?
Yeah, great question. Jayce, as you know, Jayce is now about 10 years old. I started working on Jayce. I got this whole vision of Jayce back in 2013. And Jayce is just a character that I created to just resonate with everyone, kids and adults alike. The name, it's just an overall aesthetic that ties into what the character is about. The name, the meaning of the name is just accepting yourself changes everything. And he's a little colorful bee that doesn't have a stinger. In this multiverse, he doesn't. This bee doesn't have a stinger, but he has a heart the size of a mountain. And you become more familiar with Jayce as he goes on these adventures, showcasing teamwork, believing in himself, self-esteem, and things of that nature. Yeah. So he's been a fun character. I must say I'm so glad that I was able to come up with something like that character. It seems like he is a character that just stands out. People really connect with the character, and here's to the future. Looking forward to more fan reaction with Jayce, and looking forward to just trying to continue to grow that franchise with hopefully new opportunities that may arise.
I love that. And there are five Jayce the Bee books so far, correct?
Yes. You have Jayce, the first book, Jayce, A Bee Adventure. The second book was Jayce the Bee, Journey to the Polka Dot Village. The third book is Mayhem in Beetopia. Then after that, it's Jayce the Bee, The Great Beathlon. And then the final is Jayce the Bee, Time to Shine. And again, each book has a great message. There's stories about sportsmanship, reaching your potential, diversity, forgiveness, just great messages for kids and adults alike as well.
And was it always meant to be a series?
No. Honestly, no. The first Jayce the Bee book was just a story that I wanted to tell. Jayce, A Bee Adventure, I set out to just do one book. And, that's the amazing part of this whole journey, Davon, is you just never know where it's going to take you. And, my goal was to write a story and illustrate it, and something that could inspire children, something I could look back on. But I really learned a lot. I've learned a lot through the first book. They always say the first book is the toughest, and I think I agree with that. But, yeah, I never thought it would turn into what it has. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a game app. I think you know that. There's a game app on the Apple App Store that ties into the franchise. So, again, we're in such a digital age where, kids are using these devices. So I thought, it'd be great to speak their language as well, try to entice them to read more. So I know with my son, he's a big Sonic the Hedgehog guy. So, and Mario. So if there's anything literature-wise, he's going to read it because that's something that he really enjoys. So I thought, that'd be great to encourage kids to read things that they really like. If you, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. If I guess what I looked at and what I realized, if you entice a young mind, if it's something that they really, really enjoy, they're going to read it. They're going to want to know more about it. And so I took that thought process and said, hey, what if I can create a game app that's based on the stories? Well, that gives them an incentive to want to read the stories. So it's just a way to kind of bundle everything together in a language that the kids can resonate with and encourage them to want to read the Jayce the Bee stories.
I love that. Interesting.
Yeah.
And how do you find the messages, these specific messages, to integrate within the Jayce the Bee series?
I guess I'm just kind of inspired by they're all around us. I don't know if there's different stories. It's just how you tell the story. Like, overcoming obstacles. I'm sure there's, a bunch of stories out there that address that message. Being yourself, accepting yourself. For me, it was just more looking deep within myself, seeing how my kids and other kids would struggle with self-esteem, and feeling like they don't belong. When it's all in the mind. It's how do you take those messages and incorporate them in a way that kids can understand that you do have value. You do have what it takes. And so for me, I was inspired just by life. Just looking around, the stories around us all over. Every day there's some type of story that could be packaged in a way that there's a lesson to it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's pretty much what keeps me going. I like some of the stories that I hope to be releasing, independent stories that I hope to be releasing in the next year or two. They're completely different, but I think they're stories that I've been wanting to tell for a while, and I'm excited about them. So yeah, I'm always looking for inspiration. I'm always looking for different stories. So yeah.
Awesome. And just real quickly, where can readers find your stories? Where can they go to purchase them?
Barnes and Nobles, Amazon. Most online distribution channels carry the Jayce the Bee and Harold stories. You can purchase directly from jaycethebee.com, which is my personal website for the Jayce the Bee series and also the Harold stories. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Calvin, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We wish you all the best. The Jayce the Bee series alongside the Harold series is now available to purchase. So Calvin, thank you so much again for coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for having me.
And of course, thank you to everyone who has been listening to this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you to Patsy and to the Joy on Paper crew. As Patsy always says, one of the joys of life is to see your words on paper, to hear them spoken in an audible book, or, if you're very lucky, your book will be turned into a major motion picture, streaming video, or series on the Hallmark Channel. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to see previous episodes or keep in the know about future Joy on Paper episodes, be sure to visit our website at radio-joyonpaper.com and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Radio Joy on Paper. Thank you so much to Patsy for allowing me to guest host today. Thank you so much to Big Ed over in the control room and all the crew members over at Tan Talk Radio Network. And of course, thank you to all the wonderful people involved in Joy on Paper who make this program such a joy to be a part of. I hope I was able to provide a little joy in your day today, but we'll see you next time on Joy on Paper. I think it's about time that I buzz out now.